This is day 2. I only hiked about 0.2 from where I got dropped off, or where I left off, I should say. All right, let's get things kicked off with the band of the day. My favorite all-time band is Kiss. That's right. So my favorite song, and this is hard, but it's I Stole Your Love, the live version from Alive 2. I could have easily threw in Detroit Rock City, but right now it's I Stole Your Love. And for honorable mention, a song that was not popular in the States called Shandy. All right. Okay, let's get into the story from last night. Okay, what I'm going to do, I am not going to create more drama than need be. I'm just going to tell the story, and I'm also not going to downplay what happened last night. So, as you knew, I only had 1 liter of water. And I didn't even take my first swig until after I had that beer. I mean, yeah, if I would have known what was coming up. Okay, so I made a good 6 miles before I even had to start. I just drank a little bit of the water. And I think there's someone coming. I'll just pause it if I see someone walking. Okay, so then we had both agreed that the most ideal place to be picked up was Cooper Gap instead of Hightower Gap, because Hightower has roughly 7.8 miles of gravel road. And his tire, even though he got a new one, it's still slowly losing tire pressure. So he's going to go back to that shop, I think, tomorrow to see if maybe the rim's bent or the nozzle or whatever, but we'll see. So he thought better of that. And plus, even if he had a good tire, he doesn't want to be driving down these roads if he doesn't have to. So Cooper Gap only had roughly a mile. When the asphalt ran out, there's about a mile of gravel. Well, little did we know, while I was hiking, he was scouting it out, and we were going to scout this out on Friday, two days ago. We were going to scout some of these roads because there's not many gravel roads. We got one more, but we already scouted that. That's in a few days. Okay, so then he texts me through the Garmin device, and that Garmin does not really, it's not very reliable for timely texts. I mean, you receive some, I don't know, it's still figuring out, but it works. Okay, he said that the road's impassable because of the just the roughness of the road is not ideal for a Tesla that has the battery on the bottom of the vehicle. Okay. Also, I did not want to include this in yesterday's video because either way it would have been the next day. I was too tired out to do a wrap-up video, and it's probably best I just waited till today. But I didn't want to include that on day 1 to lengthen the video any longer. So today is going to be mostly this video and maybe towards the end, because I only got 8 miles, 8.3. So it shortened the day because just based on the roads that we already planned this out before we even left, which roads. So it's going to be a shorter day, of course. Okay, getting back to the water situation. I was fine until I had 6 miles to go. I still had a half a liter at that point, but I realized as far as time-wise, it's like, I don't know, it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm doing 2 miles an hour. It's like, well, on a good day, I'd put me there at 5:30, but it didn't work out that way. And he had texted me to say that he was going to wait for me at Cooper Gap, but he had to stand back to get my messages, and then it was a 20-minute drive to the point where he would pick me up. So he was just, well, I'm tracking my hike, actually, so he can see where I'm on the trail, 10-minute delays or whatever. Every 10 minutes, there's another tracking point, so he knows roughly where I'm at. So as I got closer to the pickup point, he would just leave that area and come get me. Okay, so then I'm trying to remember how this all went down, but I knew I was, even at 2:30, I thought, I should mention, remember, I didn't have my fanny pack. I do now. But I had 3 essentials in there: the water filter, my headlamp, and my electrolyte drink mixes. So as time went on, I hit high water gap. That was where we were going to go, but that was not an option at that time anyway. He probably would have just ran into more rough roads, so I'm not going to put him through that. I mean, it wasn't really an emergency or anything yet. yet, I say. Well, stay tuned here. So then at that point at High Tower Gap, I had 3.7 to go, which, I think it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon at that point, but I was definitely behind schedule. And trying to hike the mountain's called Sassafras Mountain, and it's really steep up and a steep down. Trying to do this with trekking poles, which you need on that mountain, I think you do, considering the condition I was getting in worsening. I didn't think I could do it with my, I could have my cell phone as a light, but it'd be hard to, navigate the trail with poles. I mean, yeah, I could have held on to them some spots and used my my phone as a flashlight, I guess, but I was at about 60% battery. I did not have also in that fanny pack was another, was my charging brick. Okay, we're at 6 minutes already on this segment, but I'm going to try to wrap this up. But then what happened was I had to keep drinking a little water, and then it got to the point where I got to Horse Gap. I says I only got I told him 4 ounces, but I think I had closer to 6 ounces water left. Oh, so around that point, it was even before that. It was, I had 1.4, so that's where it was. 1.4 miles to get to Horse Gap, which is also not an option because you need to take the road from Cooper Gap to get there. So I had 1.4 to the Horse Gap, and then the mountain itself, Sassafras, is 1.7 up and down to Cooper Gap Road, or the road that's at Cooper Gap. Excuse me. So then I made it to Horse Gap. I pleaded one more time, is there any chance you can get me at Horse Gap? And then he explained, I said, my situation is dire. That's how I texted. I didn't really have another explanation. I said, that's when I told him I was down to 4 ounces of water, and I don't know if I can make it up that mountain. So he was still receiving my texts, some of them, but anyway, he received the crucial one, or less. He made the decision that he's going to come get me. So he was 20 minutes away from the trail. He says, after this text, I will be out of range, so you can't text me. So I said, okay. And I hadn't even thought that, he could come rescue me with water and everything and bring the headlamps. So that's what happened. I made it to Horse Gap, and then I made it up maybe about 0.3 of that 1.7 up the mountain by myself to meet him. And we took a little break. Of course, I got some water. I wouldn't say I was like on the verge of, collapsing or anything, but to get up that mountain still, I mean, it was probably doable. It would have just took me a long time. And he gave me a snack, some freeze-dried strawberries. I tried finishing my brownie I had early in the day. I'd only had a beef stick and a brownie, and then I had breakfast before I hit the trail. So I wasn't really hungry, but I know I needed nourishment. And I tried eating the rest of that brownie, and since I was so, I guess you would say, dehydrated, my mouth was just, really dry. I couldn't swallow it. I got somewhere around my lips, and I swallowed what I could, but I spit it out. Because I drank the last of my water at that point, or during that break. So anyway, so I don't know if the strawberries, they had to have helped. I didn't eat many, but we started hiking up, and we had roughly, I want to say about 20 minutes of daylight before we decided to put on the headlamps, and it was probably about 0.2 before the top of the mountain. And then at that point, it started raining. I would say light to moderate, not enough. We didn't. I got rain gear, but he doesn't. But it was still in the low 60s at that time, so it actually felt a little refreshing, to be honest. So there was no need to put on rain gear at that point, or well, he didn't have any, but he could have. I got something in my backpack he probably could have covered himself with. Anyway, so we made it up the mountain, and then we still had to go down probably about 0.7, and it's a very steep downhill. But downhill in this situation is better than uphill. All right, I know I'm dragging on the story. I'm going to wrap it up, but whatever. We made it to the bottom, and then so we had to do some night hiking. That's what I want to explain. The previous clip was like a 7. I thought I got to at least get a little bit, I didn't tell him I was going to film the little 7-second clip. I don't think that would be appropriate, but I did it anyway. on trail. Just to, who night hikes on their first night on trail? Well, I did, roughly a mile and a half. And then we got to the gap, but he had his car parked down another half mile, which was fine. And so we walked in the dark for that. And then we got back. Then we drove to our Airbnb, and all is well. So now it's day 2. Oh, to wrap up that story, I had a couple of options. I did see a couple of trucks ride past Hightower Gap. I thought, well, I could hike back down a little bit, try to hitchhike, but then he wouldn't know that I was hitchhiking, and he'd probably be waiting forever. Plus, he was, at that point, he didn't commit to hiking up the hill and getting me, but I did not. I continued on, and then Horse Gap. I saw a car on the road, but there was no way to reach it. Not that I needed to, but I'm just saying that would be one option. Since I was out of water, I was willing to fill up my water bottle with unfiltered water if need be. But since I knew he was coming, that's when I chugged those 6 ounces. And that, I thought it's better to have it inside me instead of on standby, just for that little bit that he would come get me with some more water and a headlamp. And then actually, before about 0.7 before I got to Horse Gap, there was a guy tenting, just doing probably an overnight. And I was almost going to ask him for some water, but I thought if Tanner, or my son Pacer, yeah, his first name's Tanner, but if he wasn't coming, I would ask that guy for some water, or at least let me filter some and put it in my bottle. Yeah, I was definitely in that situation. And then the worst case scenario, I have this Garmin SOS device. I could have hit SOS on my first day on trail. That would, to me, that's not really an option, but that would be the very, very last resort. I do have the insurance to get rescued. I probably would have just called the hike right then and there if I had called. I mean, that would have just been such a downer. So I had to collect my thoughts, and I was very worn out last night, so I didn't. That's why I decided not to film the segment until today. So now you know, and it's basically, if you want to slam me in the comments that you should have did this or that, go ahead. I don't care. But definitely was a learning experience. I'm already at 12 minutes. I can't believe how time flies. I'm sorry for the long video, but I'll try not to make a habit of this. I should point out I'm 63 years old. I've been retired 4 years. I do have a slight sore left knee on the downhills. It's very minor. It's nothing worth getting looked at, but it's there, and I just gotta be careful. And I do have a back issue, lower back, that just for whatever reason, it'll go out at random, maybe once, maybe twice a year, but on average about once a year. But I'm very careful. I just cannot lift heavy objects, especially off the ground. That'll throw it out immediately. But sometimes, like just climbing upstairs or reaching over for something, just randomly. So, and that happened back in end of September. So I might be good to go for a year. We'll see. But I mean, the backpack I'm wearing, it's not bad. It doesn't seem to give me any back issues, and it's feeling good. So once again, I apologize. I think I pretty much told you the whole story. I will try to not let something like this happen again. But I am refreshed. I'm showered. We ate breakfast, had a coffee, and I'm back on trail, and I'm going to knock out these miles for today. And I'll probably make one little wrap-up segment at the end of the trail. So we'll see you later. A couple other things I thought of. I remember I inserted that clip when I said, I could just go for a glass of ice water. At that time, it wasn't that bad. It just, of course you want a glass of ice water. Who wouldn't? I was just sweating and everything, but I didn't know at that time that what was to come ahead. I knew that it was a little sketchy, but not as bad as I thought it was going to end up. But all is well. Also, I forgot to mention, I do have plantar fasciitis. I was starting to feel a little bit yesterday, but it went away. But I had another bout. I've been suffering from this for a long time, but then I got the proper inserts that made the pain go away for, I don't know, about 8 years or so. And then a little under 2 years ago, it came back with a vengeance, just in my right foot, a little bit in the left. And that was a year and a half, pretty much on, not off, but it was on more than off. So then in early November, it just went away. And I haven't, hopefully it'll hold off until after the hike. And then same with the knee. I mean, I even had a little bit of issue. It's usually when I bend down with my knees to the ground. That's why I'm wearing those knee pads. I'm not wearing them now, but I will be. Is that I can feel just that slight discomfort. But the right knee went completely away. I never had right knee. And then the left knee would occasionally do the same thing. So I know when to be careful and all that. So anyway, so the left knee, I was just having minor issues and that went completely away. I mean, other than going downhill, steep downhills, I got to take it easy. So yesterday was day one. I wanted it to be special. Yeah, I had some things pre-planned with the pre-recorded clips and all that, but for the most part, the foolishness is over and it's serious business now, and I'll be a little bit more low-key for now until I can get that thought out of my head from yesterday. All right, so far the trails hasn't been too bad. This is rare. Yesterday I'd be walking pretty much on a flat surface. All right, I'll film a segment after I get done with today's trail. So, yeah. Are you rolling? All right. Well, that wraps up day 2. I just wanted to say once again, Tanner, thank you for yesterday. You saved my life. And can we go to McDonald's and get a soda?